This is the L.A.B Golf Df3, a putter from a company that has been taking professional golf and YouTube golf by storm. And today, we're going to put it to the test against L.A.B's self-proclaimed greatest development yet, the Oz putter, to see if it stacks up. But before that, we're going to take a deeper dive into the world of putters and putter history to understand why these colorful clubs are still so controversial today.
It is one of the strangest looking putters I've ever seen.
This is a cheat code to lower scores.
They couldn't get over the look of this putter.
And the answer is...
Okay, so just in case you've never heard of L.A.B Golf, they're a company based in Oregon built around this idea of lie angle balanced putters. And the Df3 is a perfect example of that. With its large head and admittedly polarizing build, it's able to remain square to whatever path you swing it on. And L.A.B sent me them today to review for you guys, but I'm gonna do much more than just review them and get really into the detail of the golf market because there's a much bigger story around the whole thing. The golf market as a whole can be very slow to adopt new products, especially when they're so far from the norm, which is really the least you can say for these funky putters, and which is actually one of the things that nearly closed down the original company behind the directed force putters, which is where the CEO of L.A.B Golf, Sam Hahn, came in. See, back in the day, the company wasn't doing well and not converting the sales they needed to stay afloat, despite getting more and more fitters across the United States to go on board with their methodology. But one man who happened to get fit for one also with some resources and maybe more importantly, a great understanding of marketing, came in to basically purchase the entire company after falling in love with one of their not so flat sticks. With Sam, they were able to get the putters in front of the right people, be it journalists, reviewers, or other fitters, and then slowly introduce the putter to social media as well. All of which helped propel L.A.B into the minds of equipment junkies throughout the industry and started slowly moving the ball forward to the tour and onward. But people still hated the way these clubs worked. However, that idea mattered a little bit less because now more than ever, trusted voices in the golf world were looking favorably on the company, and that was really all a few people needed. With this increased reach, L.A.B started utilizing their patented revealer even more, a contraption meant to hang the club from a single point and display the L.A.B putter's ability to remain square to the path of the golfer, no matter what stroke type was being used, while also showing that other putters were not able to do the same thing. And I really need to emphasize this point about the revealer, that I don't like the idea of it very much at all. It feels very salesman-y. It feels like something I would see from the 1950s of guys going up to people's houses and giving them a little bit of a gimmicky show about a product that these people don't really need. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. I see a lot of comments on social media reflecting that similar idea, but that doesn't mean it isn't fair to show. Yes, you hold the putter with your hands, but it shows that the putter doesn't want to move no matter what, while even mallet putters, even face balanced putters want to move in your stroke, and you have to compensate for that with your hands. They want to change your stroke, but if you use a proper square to square, zero torque, L.A.B, it's not supposed to influence your stroke as much, and you can do whatever's naturally supposed to happen for your body, and I like the idea of that. And at the very least, the revealer created some buzz and interest, positive or negative, about the brand. Now, golfers still complain that the feel was duller since aluminum is softer than steel. Also that it was expensive and that it was ugly, but because it had been brought to the attention of enough people by people they trusted, well, some of them actually purchased and kept the product, growing the name more and more, which is also an idea that has been basically with golf since the beginning of the sport altogether. For example, 40 years ago, Jack Nicklaus won his 6th and final Masters, all the while using what was around a 7-inch long aluminum putter. That year, McGregor expected to sell 5,000 in total, but after having a coach convince the Golden Bear to give it a try, and with the help of some lead tape to brighten up the feel of the club, well, 6,000 orders would eventually be made that Monday after Jack's win. And though people bought them, and some people saw the benefits of a high MOI or moment of inertia, or just basically a high forgiveness putter, it didn't really stick. Case in point, we don't use 7-inch long bladed putters today, with the general king of putters, or the most sold putters, being bladed putters or reminiscent of the Ping Answer that came out decades before Jack's win. But that just goes to show you the power of what attention can do for a golf brand. And though L.A.B didn't grab anything like a Masters victory just yet, well, they were seeing an increase in their reach more than they ever had before because of the many discussions they found their name in. However, a lot of the attention led to sentiment like, I rolled it well, but it looked wild and it felt weird. Guess it's not for me. And though I'm gonna find out if L.A.B is for me later in this video, I think L.A.B saw this less as an unfavorable review and more of an opportunity to grow even further. For a while, I think discussion mainly focused on the look of the clubs, and of course it did. They were the weirdest looking putters for years, and the vast majority of golfers were using Odyssey and Onser style clubs that have been around for decades. So L.A.B looked to answer that problem, to make a club that could break off a little bit of that market while still relying firmly on the technology behind lie angle balanced putters. And so they came out with the L.A.B Link 1, a blade style center shafted club meant to replicate the style of the putters of years past while still keeping that face square to whatever path you swung it on. But what's even more impressive to me is that over time, L.A.B has been able to add this same exact technology into a variety of different club head shapes, therefore increasing its reach even further than I mentioned before, and then getting the clubs into the hands of even more and more influential people, including a lot of golf pros. Will Zalatoris, Phil Mickelson, Ricky Fowler, Adam Scott, and more have all had L.A.B putters in the bag for a little while now, and that's growing the recognition of the club even further. I was just watching Grant Horvat's new video with Phil Mickelson where they played Dustin Johnson. Great video, definitely recommend checking out. But I happened to notice that all 4 of the guys in that video were using L.A.B putters. Now, I'm gonna be honest, Dustin Johnson didn't do the best job showing it off so far, but hey, I think it's an interesting point to note that a lot of these guys that are very clearly tinkering with their putter stroke are choosing to tinker with L.A.B golf. And to be fair, it is okay to note that these guys are not historically the best putters. Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson historically have struggled with their putting. And to be fair, Grant is the king of lip outs too. So these guys are all struggling with putters and are trying to find something that works for them. And a lot of them are going to L.A.B golf. As L.A.B has continued to grow over the past few years, Sam Honico continued to, you could say, prove the non-believers wrong by creating putters that directly answer the questions that so many people have had through the years, with their new answer being the L.A.B OZ1I. The Oz introduced a stainless steel milled insert, a top-ahead style based off the classic Odyssey Rossi. With this combo, they really attacked their issues head on, potentially even hitting at the criticism that lag putting is more difficult with L.A.B putters, likely due to the aluminum build and it being softer. And I can confirm that it definitely feels firmer off the face and comes off a decent amount hotter than it does on the Df3. Does that mean it works better for me? Not necessarily. We're going to have to find that out. I'm actually really curious which one works better, but we're going to do that right after we get into the holdups that still do exist around L.A.B putters, because they are there and I want to make this review as objective as possible. One thing that I see floating around quite a bit is that you can't really feel where the head is in your stroke. And though L.A.B does have heavier weighting options available with most putters, I could imagine that may turn a few golfers off. However, I think that people making that criticism kind of miss the point of these putters, since you don't have to square it up. You just move your shoulders in a certain path and let the club flow and do its thing. Again, I can see this potentially being an issue for speed on longer putts. Maybe this is part of the reason that lag putting has been in discussions as being more difficult with L.A.B putters, or at least is what people mention. But again, L.A.B offers many options that may help to address this problem, so I'm not sure about that. However, it's exactly all of these options that they do offer that leads into the larger conversation about L.A.B that we have to have. Price. Their putters range from $400 on the low end to around $1,000 for some fully spec'd models, and that's insane. But it's also arguably a necessity because of the way that the clubs are made. Since they offer so many variations of each club, they need to hand balance each club, and then they have to have the sale price eat the cost of all the R&D to find the putter shapes that will fit into the lie angle balance ideology. They also put everything together in the United States and clearly have a lot of care put into the development of the options for their golfers, including tons of alignment lines and shaft options to meet the eye and feel needs of their customers, all the while providing online fitting experiences for free for those unable to find a fitter in person. Now, actually, the PGA Tour Superstore does sell the clubs and offers fittings if you need them, and you'll find some links below where you can check out the putters, and it'll actually support the channel if you make purchases via the links. But for those not interested or turned off by the price of L.A.B golf, which I think is fair, they are very expensive. I think this is a very interesting change for the putter market, where it's obviously interesting enough for some of these great golfers to make the change, to really really be invested in the idea, even when they're not necessarily being paid to use the club. That's huge, and a rising tide raises all ships. So no matter what happens, I think putters will be made over the next couple of years that will embrace similar technology. But in a few years, when Cleveland come out with a square-to-square putter, things are going to change. People are really going to adopt this because it's a very interesting technology, at the very least, offering golfers another really, really appealing option. That is what I'm all here for. So whether you buy a L.A.B putter, and hey, if you do, try to using the links in the description. I'll get a kickback, and I think it's worth checking out. But again, this isn't a sponsorship. Do I love everything about it? No, I wish it was cheaper, but it's not. And right now, I think that's okay for a lot of people. But that does bring me back to seeing which of the Oz or the Df3 fits best for me. And maybe I can give those of you that are deciding between the two some insight into the clubs. So let's go and do it. Ooh, that was a go in. Our putters are tied now, but that's gonna be, I'm giving it a lot of credit for that putt. All right, cool. Really rolling. Get up there, get up there. Yes, sir. All right, telling from what the setting the camera was on, I likely lost some audio there, but the Df3 is doing pretty well so far. I'm very impressed with how it feels off the face. I know it's aluminum, it's different than what I normally use, but I really do enjoy it. This makes me feel like I don't have to worry about closing the face or squaring the face in a way that bladed putters in the past, and even face balanced putters in the past, have made me feel. That putt right there was hit a lot easier than I've been hitting most of the putts with the Df3, and it got all the way up here. That is something to take into account, especially if you're used to hitting like a Scotty Cameron that's a little bit hotter off the face than the aluminum Df3 or other L.A.B putters in the past. So I've gotten to hole 18 at Marine Park here, and I've only played 9. I'm gonna play 2 approach shots, or if I end up on the green, I'm gonna pick 2 different reads on opposite sides of the green. There is about 1 billion geese in the way. So, sorry if I kill a goose. All right, as you guys can see here, I've dropped 2 equidistant from the hole. The Df3 gets to go first. That's the putter. And give it not too many beans. Yeah, way too short. All right, there's room there. This is a little bit of an easier putt, and I think I have some confidence now with the weighting of this. Maybe that's partially why I hit the Df3 so short there, because I was used to the stainless steel head of this. Oh, it broke the opposite way. Much better putt though. I'm just gonna go ahead and in here and clean this up. Good putt. I think even if I 2-putt this from here, the Df3 wins by 1. Wind is blowing hard left to right, so any break that's in it, I think I'm gonna take it off. Nope. Overall good rolls. And so the final tallies are the Df3 wins. I think it's about a stroke or 2 up, but overall it did feel better for me. But in theory, it's very personal preference, and they do feel very different, even though they're made by the same brand and they have the same lie angle balance technology. The technology, even in these 2 putters, is very different. Thank you all for watching. This video would not have been possible if it weren't for the support that I receive from my viewers and my Patreon supporters like Jake Parsons. So head on over to there to find ad-free videos, as well as a full round and other rounds that I'll be putting on of me playing golf and testing products. So you guys can not only get some insight onto what I'm gonna be uploading onto the channel in the future, but also get to know me a little bit better and support the channel while you're at it.